Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, November 8th regular meeting of the Mason County Board of Commissioners. Today is Election Day. I just want to take a point of personal privilege and express my appreciation to all the candidates who stepped up. It's not an easy road to haul, and I think it takes a lot of courage and a lot of vision to step up and say, I want to run. And I also want to thank everybody that did vote. I'm just so impressed at the fact that we have hundreds of thousands of new voters in the state of Washington, and that is so encouraging to me. And so this is a very, very important day for me personally and for our nation as a whole.
And I want to thank Cleveland and Chicago for letting us forget about the election for one night and watch the World Series, and thank God it's over. Almost over.
Almost over. Best wishes to all the candidates. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Tim Sheldon.
I'm also here.
And Commissioner District 3, Terry Jeffries.
Here. Correspondence and organizational business. Would you please report the correspondence received by the Commission?
Evergreen Forest County Group sent an annual report on our Washington, D.C. advocacy efforts on behalf of Washington State's forest counties. The Economic Development Council of Mason County sent their third quarter report. The Liquor and Cannabis Board sent a marijuana license application for South Colby investors in Tahuya. A sample ordinance was provided by Bill McFarland regarding the abatement of chronic nuisance properties. And we received a response from Mason County Democrats regarding the request for nominations for the Mason County clerk position.
Thank you. Item number 5, this is our open forum for citizen input, an opportunity for the public to address the Commission on any items that are not on the agenda. If you'd like to address the Commission, please raise your hand, step to the podium, and state your name. Is there anybody who would like to address the Commission at this time? Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Commissioners. Tom Davis, 170 West Bushy Road. This is an appropriate time for two appropriate messages. One is our Veterans Stand Down that happens on the 19th. This is a collaboration with all the service organizations in Mason County. Services will be provided, toiletries, sleeping bags, cold weather gear, haircuts, legal assistance, housing assistance. It's going to be quite an event, and it's on the 19th. Also, the mobile medical unit will be there, which is we put in a permit with the city to get that street blocked off between the Memorial Hall and the safety building, and it looks like that's going to occur, so people can go right down the ramp and into the mobile medical unit, so it avoids any traffic problems. That is one thing. The other one is it's also an appropriate time to talk about any veterans issues, and I'm here with April Pooler. She's the chair of the Veterans Advisory Board, and we're working in collaboration on the stand down. But what our main function is to provide services on an ongoing basis. That's in terms of money, when people have financial assistance, when people who are indigent, who are also veterans, and their families get behind in their rent and their utilities and so on. If you notice that it's a complicated task in terms of there's a lot of people, a lot of money, a lot of needs, but it winds up on, from the beginning of the year, 2 sheets of paper. It's very clear. What it is that it's delineated here with colors, and so anyone, even if they weren't familiar with our service, can pick this up and in just a matter of a couple of minutes know exactly what we've done, and to the penny, since January 1. And we've served 88 vets since the beginning of the year. Out of those 88 vets, 16 of them have met their who could that possibly be?
Some idiot.
16 of them have met their threshold, their $1,000 threshold. That's 14.8%. So that's pretty good. So as you know, we get a levy, runs around $78,000 a year. It's attached to the property tax. It's 1.08 cents per $1,000 of value. It's very small, and it just does a great deal of good. Also incorporated in this is a bunch of guidelines and checkpoints. And I guess that's the real point I want to make here at this time. These folks come in who have these needs, and they're veterans. They go through a process, and it's a standardized process and is not wavered. They have to meet a certain criteria. In this case, if you're a single person, you have to have a household income of $1,485 or less in order to receive assistance. Nobody benefits. Nobody gets rich. Nobody walks away thinking they beat the system. And it's because not only are we involved in it, but also the county is involved in it. And the county insists that we itemize everything, and that each and every week these requests are not only processed but approved by the county. These are the checks and balances that make this work. So we run a tight ship, and we run a tight ship in collaboration with the county. And I think it sets a very, very good example. It's short on paperwork and long on service, and we never worry about transparency. We never worry about being called and questioned on something. We are open to any question at any time. And as I said, it's a simple process when you look at it if it's done right. And I hope to continue that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your service, all of you on the Veterans Advisory Board. And my thanks especially to our service officers. Those folks are there every week, 3 to 4 days a week, meeting with the people who have the need, and I appreciate their work.
Yeah, I do as well, Madam Chair, because you do the screening and bring the paperwork to us, and you've always done a great job at that, and we really appreciate it.
Is there anybody else that would like to address the commission? Hearing none, we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move for the adoption of the agenda as presented.
I will second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. The approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I'll move for the approval of the minutes for October 25th and November 1st, the regular meeting minutes.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the October 25th and November 1st regular meeting minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. Item number 8, this is our action agenda. The intention is to approve all the items on the action agenda with one vote. We will read through each of the items and provide an opportunity for anybody in the audience to ask any questions on the items read. We also have the opportunity, you as the audience and we as the commission, to ask that any of the items be pulled out for a separate vote and testimony. So first we'll read through them, and I will read 8.1 through 8.4. Commissioner Netherland, would you please read 8.5 through 8.7, and Commissioner Sheldon 8.8 through 8.11. Item 8.1, approval of a letter of support to Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife for Forterra's proposed conservation of an 816-acre property along Little Skookum Inlet in Mason County. 8.2, approval for Public Works equipment rental and revolving to use written and/or telephone solicitations for tire repair and towing services for the 2017 calendar year and execute and award contracts. Mason County does not guarantee a minimum purchase of these services. 8.3, approval to approve and execute the resolution setting up a restricted fund balance of $1,680,000 reserved for new road projects beginning with the 2017 adopted budget that will be approved by the board either by the adoption of the annual budget or in a budget supplemental expense request. 8.4, approval for Public Works to use written and/or telephone solicitations to establish a 2017 surfacing materials unit pricing vendor list and purchase quantities as needed for projects throughout Mason County on an as-needed basis.
Madam Chair, item number 8.5 reads, approval of the Veterans Assistance Fund applications for necessity items, $400. Utilities, $1,158.20. And housing, $1,000 for a total of $2,558.20 as recommended by the Veteran Service Office. Item number 8.6, approval of the release and hold harmless agreement to settle any and all claims, demands, damages, costs, and attorney fees, expenses, penalties, liens, actions, or cause of action arising from the client services contract between Mason County Public Defender and FT Law, P.S. attorneys, dated on or about December 27, 2014, in the amount of $23,764.80 and request for public records made by Christopher Taylor dated on or about May 7, 2015 to the Mason County Office of Public Defenders in the amount of $26,050 for a total of $49,814.80. Item number 8.7. Approval of the amendment number 10 between the Department of Health and Mason County Public Health to increase the contract by $129,906 for a total revised contract amount of $1,506,438. This amendment affects the following programs: Emergency Preparedness and Response, Maternal and Child Health Block Grant, and TB Program.
Item 8.8, approval of warrants. Claims Clearing Fund, warrant numbers 8043914-8043945 in the amount of $40,347.07. Claims clearing year-to-date total is $27,166,299.12. Our direct deposit year-to-date total, $11,429,520.11. And our salary clearing year-to-date total is $11,995,954.22. 8.9, approval to award $450,000 from the Rural County Sales and Use Tax Fund, .09, for the years 2017 through 2019 for current obligations of Belfair Sewer Phase 1. 8.10, approval of the Memorandum of Understanding between Mason County and Teamsters Union Local Number 252, representing the Mason County General Services Collecting Bargaining Unit, to address the recruit and retain issue and the ability to provide necessary and essential public services. And finally, 8.11, approval to request for proposals for janitorial services for county facilities. Proposals are due at the county by November 23rd, and specifications will be available on the county website, www.co.mason.wa.us.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions on any of the items that were just read?
Madam Chair, 8.6, what's that about? Not very clear.
Did we want the commission to address that, or our attorney?
Or we could have it for a separate item. And
Well, if he's got a question, I'd rather him just go ahead and...
Yeah, there is a claim, a breach of contract claim brought by Taylor, FT Law PS, which was Christopher Taylor, against a contract that they had with the Public Defender's Office. There was also a claim related to that over public records requests that they made in relation to their contract claim. And this is a resolution of all and any of claims brought for either one of those type of claims. So it's a global resolution for both of those claims.
There won't be any other action after this.
On this, no. This is to settle all of those claims. The breach of contract claim and the public records lawsuit claim.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Commissioners? Would anybody in the audience like any of the items removed for a separate vote and testimony?
First of all, I guess I need to ask permission to speak, since I'm under a directive not to speak to any county employees, if I could be relieved of that, so I can make that request.
Mr. Whitehead?
During this portion, I think that's okay.
Yes.
I'd like 8.6 removed for a separate vote and discussion.
Any other items request for a move for a separate vote?
Madam Chair, I'd request that 8.3 be dealt with separately.
Commissioner Netherland, do you have any items? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move for the approval of the action agenda with the exception of item number 8.3 and 8.6, which will be removed for a separate vote.
I'll second the motion, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the items on the action agenda with the exception of 8.3 and 8.6, which will have separate votes and testimony. Is there any discussion? I wanted to just point out that the item 8.1 is a conservation of some lands along the Low Skookum Inlet. We thank Forterra for their efforts to work with Pope Resources?
Port Blakely.
Pardon me?
Port Blakely.
Port Blakely, my apologies. What I like about this particular program and this particular plan for conservation is it does encourage public access to the lands and the shorelands. And how many acres or how many feet of shoreline?
2 miles.
2 miles of
That's
shoreline
remaining shoreline.
to be put into conservation, but this will still be a working forest. So I like that type of arrangement. And I thank Forterra for their work on that.
I just make a note too, just looking through the real estate excise tax transactions and county transaction. There was a transaction here last month with Squaxin Island tribe bought Clam Fresh, which was the old Ernie Dahlman facility. So there's been some changes in ownership there. Sales price was over $4 million. So there's some valuable tidelands out there, and I think supporting this will help us to keep those tidelands as productive as possible. So it's amazing the prices and the product that leaves Mason County every day and goes to New York, San Francisco, you name it.
Any other discussion? I would call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. Item 8.3, approval to approve and execute the resolution setting up a restricted fund balance of $1,680,000 reserved for new road projects beginning with the 2017 adopted budget that will be approved by the board either by the adoption of the annual budget or in a budget supplemental expense request. We have our county road engineer, or county engineer here, Melissa McFadden. Would you like to introduce this topic?
Good morning, Commissioners. Melissa McFadden, Mason County Public Works. When we were working with you through the budget process last year and this year, you expressed a desire to set up a restricted fund that could be used for new road projects. We also want to share with Commissioners, and we've included it in this resolution, setting up that restricted fund, that our annual construction program details any work that we're planning, any capital projects that we're planning to work on throughout the year. So we made sure to include that in the resolution. So if Commissioners develop a project that they want us to work on at any point throughout the year, we will need to revise our annual construction program. But otherwise, anything that we do with county road funds will be listed as part of the annual construction program at any time. After talking with the State Auditor's Office, the best way to set up this restricted fund was through resolution. So that's what we prepared and have here for you. And I don't know if there are questions or concerns.
Are there any questions for Melissa?
Yeah, I have a couple. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Melissa, how long have you been here?
I've been with the county for 6 years.
6 years. Is this the first time that we've ever done this?
To my knowledge.
Okay, so you've been here 6. I've been here, this will be 12 in another 2 months. So there's 12 years of experience. I've never seen us do this before either. So I just have my misgivings, and I wanted to express those. I'm not going to vote for this because I think it should be out there as we write the budget, as we write the annual construction plan, what we're going to spend our money on. And what started in this budget process for public works and roads was a proposal to use, I think it was about $1.8 million for connector roads for the Belfair bypass, which hasn't been built yet. and there was a proposal to connect the Romance Hill Road with that proposed bypass. Romance Hill Road is a goat trail. It's extremely steep, and so we had the discussion about that, and I raised my objection. So now we have a fund which will be used and determined how to be used by the next commission in a process which you've outlined. But I just think it's a big change in how we write our budgets, and wanted to express my apprehension in doing it this way.
Any other questions? Thank you. We'll open up the floor for public testimony. Is there anybody who'd like to testify on item 8.3? Hearing none, I will close public testimony and move to Commissioner deliberation. You've made your thoughts known. Commissioner Netherland, did you want to?
We haven't been building new roads for the last 12, 15 years. This is an opportunity to put some money aside to start to have a new road or several new roads for economic development purposes in the future. Without having an account that you can reach into to do that, then you're going to have to take it out of other line items such as bridge replacements and the like. This makes perfect sense. It's a good way to move and look towards the future, and to have money available for matching funds should anything else arise, that opportunity to give us a new road anywhere in the county, not in Belfair, not just wherever it comes up, including the Simmons Road connector, which we are still shy money on.
I'm also in favor of this in that it's always prudent to set aside monies for the projects, the big projects that are going to come down the line. To have a specific project have to be outlined for this means that we lose flexibility. We do have two very distinct needs and a third need potentially coming down the road with the danger of Trails Road and what might we do to, should we lose that road, what will we do for an alternate road? That, a connector from the Belfair bypass to connect into the Belfair downtown area and the housing, what was presumed to be housing development area through our land use map, and then the Simmons Road are three very distinct needs. Which one we would identify this money for is to lock us into that means that we can't be flexible when and if there are needs to have matching funds, as well as it just preserves a portion of our road dollars over to construction and new roads. As people may or may not know, we've used a tremendous amount of our road dollars over the last few years for maintenance. We have the best darn roads in the state, and sometimes that's at the cost of the new roads we need. And so I'm very much in favor of this because I think it's prudent to be flexible and to be putting money away when we know we're going to have the costs coming up.
Well, Madam Chair, I know that the Simmons Road project, we found $5 million in the legislature. And the legislature also appropriated $1 million to Mason County, which we've been using for our matching money. So as the project has developed and obviously become more expensive, because we started with only a $1 million appropriation, but 2 years ago I was able to add $5 million to it. We're just a couple $100,000 short. We're waiting for some basically value engineering in order to start that project. So I don't think this is that's a reason to do this. But I'll just close with this. Commissioner Netherland, you said that you'd like to have money for, quote, roads for economic development purposes. That scares me because there's always winners and losers in economic development projects. I know we need them, but there's winners and losers. There's developers that win when the roads go in next to their property. There's people that lose when they are not served by roads in their area. So I just want to make that point that there's winners and losers in doing with this, and I'd rather be upfront with it so the public has an idea of how our money is being spent. And this is a very big deviation or change from what the county has always done. So thank you.
Madam Chair, just to piggyback on that, from the beginning of time, when you put roads in, there's winners and losers. The whole idea, though, is hopefully that whatever commission is sitting in the seat will make sure that Mason County is the winner. That's the whole idea behind it, and it'll be decided by whoever's sitting in the seats. It may not be me, it won't be you for sure. We'll see what happens. But either way, it's good, sound planning to have something available for the future. Commissioner, I see.
Frank, please.
If I may approach, I just wanted to, technicality here. The language says to execute the resolution setting up a restricted fund balance. Actually, it should be a restricted balance within an existing fund.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, I'll just close, Commissioner, I know we go back and forth on this, there's a lot of other business to do, but, and we have public hearings at 9:30, but I think that's the difficulty, is that it becomes political. And if you decide what you're going to do in the annual road budget, you can always change your annual road budget. But if you publish it in your annual road budget, the public has an idea of what's going to happen before an election. Now they don't know what's going to happen to this because they don't know the outcome of today's election.
I'm sure you did understand that before it can be spent, it has to go into that fund, go through that process. I thought that she made that clear, right?
That's a big change.
Change is good sometimes. Okay, so I would entertain a motion if there's no further deliberation.
Madam Chair, I move for the approval to approve and execute a resolution setting up a restricted balance within an existing fund of $1,680,000 reserved for new road projects beginning with the 2017 adopted budget that will be approved by the board either by the adoption of the annual budget or in the supplemental expense request.
And I'll second that motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve and execute the resolution setting up a restricted balance within an existing fund of $1,680,000 reserved for new road projects beginning with the 2017 adopted budget that will be approved by the board either by the adoption of the annual budget or in a budget supplemental expense request. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye?
Aye. Any nays?
No.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 8.6, approval of the release and hold harmless agreement to settle any and all claims, demands, damages, costs and attorney fees, expenses, penalties, liens, actions, or cause of action arising from the client services contract between Mason County Public Defender and FT Law, professional services attorneys, dated on or about December 27, 2014, in the amount of $23,764,000.80, and request for public records made by Christopher Taylor, dated on or about May 7, 2015, to the Mason County Office of Public Defender in the amount of $26,050 for a total of $49,814.80. I think we've had the presentation through the question. Is there any other questions that we would like? Yes.
So was there any disciplinary action associated with this item? Preceding this item?
Was there any disciplinary? We had our public defender put on paid administrative leave.
Was that in an open, discussed and done in an open meeting?
To put her on
Correct.
paid administrative leave. I do not believe we had that in open hearing.
I think that went through HR.
I thought that you had to do that when you have any disciplinary action has to be done in an open public meeting.
Not for paid administrative leave.
That's not considered a disciplinary action.
Maybe, could I interject?
Please.
Maybe people could speak up, because I think it's probably having Diedrich have a little trouble picking it up.
Please, talk through the process and the legalities and address Mr. Davis's
So,
questions.
addressing an action based on an action by the employee. The employee was put on paid administrative leave, and that was done in the action by HR, by Human Resources.
And it's not a disciplinary action, it was pending some investigations of some potential litigation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody like to testify on item 8.6? Mr. Grogan.
Susan Sergojian, Mason County Public Defender. I have a couple of points I'd like to make. First of all, I'm wondering why the investigation of these claims was done without talking with me. I've been waiting since being put on administrative leave to have some input into the history of these claims, and I have never been talked to. Secondly, I'm wondering if the commission knows that the settlement for the alleged breach of contract involves billings for time that was actually billed for court time when court was actually not in session, where the district court clerk's office and I worked on this together for weeks to determine the amount of time that was billed, and many of these hours that were billed as court time, and we confirmed through court records and listening to recordings that actually court was not in session when the attorney billing was for court time. Also, I'm wondering if the commission knows that a substantial portion of this alleged breach of contract settlement involves double billing for hours spent billed for the same hours spent on two different cases, billing them twice, and in one case billing them 3 times for the same attorney hours. Also wondering if the commission knows that a substantial portion of this proposed settlement involves billing for attorney work time for hours where juries were deliberating and the attorney was doing absolutely nothing. So those are a few of my concerns. I have other concerns, but I'm wondering if the commissioners know what they're paying for, in effect, hours that were not actually worked. And I think the taxpayers of Mason County should be aware of that.
I do recall our briefing with you in which you stated your reasons, including everything you had just stated, when you wanted to have the contract null and voided. And so I'm very aware of that. Commissioners, did anybody else want to respond? Is there anybody else who would like to testify on that? Item 8.6. Hearing none, we'll close public testimony and move to commissioner deliberation. Commissioners?
Since this is very much a legal issue, Madam Chair, do we want to hear from our prosecutors?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic global resolution of any and all claims that Chris Taylor or FT Law would have in both the public records claim and any breach of contract claim. Because of the dynamic between the public records that were requested and the prosecutor's office, a risk pool attorney was hired to review these claims. The risk pool attorney has advised this board, the Mason County Board of County Commissioners, that this is an outstanding settlement based on our position. Michael Dorsey and myself have also advised the commission based on what we know and the claims that we have seen, that this is an outstanding resolution to the claims that the professional service organization and the individual have and hold against Mason County.
Thank you. If there's no more deliberation, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, move for the approval of the release and hold harmless agreement to settle any and all claims, demands, damages, costs, and attorney fees, expenses, penalties, liens, actions, or cause of action arising from the client services contract between Mason County Public Defender and FT Law PS attorneys, dated on or about December 27, 2014, in the amount of $23,764,080, and request for the public records made by Christopher Taylor, dated on and about May 7, 2015, to the Mason County Office of Public Defender in the amount of $26,050 for a total of $49,814.80.
Madam Chair, I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 8.6, approval of a release and hold harmless agreement to settle any and all claims, demands, damages, costs and attorney fees, expenses, penalties, liens, actions, or cause of action arising from the client services contract between Mason County Public Defender and FT Law Attorneys, as stated in the motion.
Madam Chair, I think our prosecutors has done a very good job on bringing this issue to us. And I'd just like to highlight the two words that Tim Whitehead has used here is global settlement. So there's a lot of issues here involved, and I'm very much in favor of settling this, and it's also at our advice of our risk pool. We are one of 17 counties that pools our risk, and they're giving us advice as well.
Madam Chair, anybody who knows me knows that anything like this I would choke on, but I'm going to tell you right now, to our prosecuting attorney's office, well done. Well done. Thank you. On behalf of Mason County.
Thank you. No further discussion. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. This takes us to item number 10. This is other business. Review item 9, other business. 9.1, review of public defenders' administrative leave absence. Our HR department, please, or our support services.
So this is a review of the public defender's administrative leave status, and you've been provided with two options to make a determination.
Is there any discussion, or is there a motion to be considered?
Madam Chair, the issue before us is under other business to review our public defender's administrative leave status. And I would make the motion to end the defense administrator's administrative leave status and terminate the employment of Susan Sargojan as the Mason County Public Defense Administrator effective immediately today, November 8th, 2016.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve to end the public defense administrator's administrative leave status and terminate the employment of Susan Sargojan as the Mason County Public Defense Administrator effective immediately November 8th, 2016. Any further discussion? We are not obligated to hold public testimony on this action, just to let you know. That's why we're not opening the floor. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you for your service to Mason County.
Before I leave, I just have a question. Am I now free to talk to other Mason County employees, and I'm free to go back in the public defense building for 3 months versus 1?
I don't think we can answer that.
You can talk
HR.
to
Arrange a time with Frank.
I'll settle the time with you, and then we can go back in
Yeah, I'm available now.
as soon
Frank
as we're
is not.
finished.
We have another item. We have a public hearing. Item number 10, this is a public, are there any department heads or elected officials? I'm sorry, we'll go back to item number 9. We have our auditor here on a very busy day. I'd like to address the public.
Thank you. Karen Herr, Mason County Auditor, and yes, today is the day, Election Day, and I just wanted to give you an update on where we are, where we stand in this election. Currently, we have 37,824 registered voters in our county, and that is the highest number by far that we've ever had. And as of last night, we've received 24,263 ballots, which is about a 64.19% voter turnout thus far.
Good work,
Yeah.
people.
Pretty good. Since we're anticipating voter turnout in the high 80s, today we expect a lot of ballots being voted, returned, and processed. So although over the last 20 days we've been processing ballots that have come in, today our priority is picking up, retrieving ballots out of the ballot drop box, and customer service upstairs, making sure that everybody that's eligible to vote has the opportunity to vote. A lot of people coming in for replacement ballots. A lot of people didn't get their address changed. If you come in and you've moved to Mason County from Skagit County, we have the capability of downloading their ballot in any county and making sure that you can vote, and we will send that to that county. So it's going to be busy upstairs. We're going to have courtroom security a presence this afternoon and this evening, helping us with crowd control. It's been a very spirited and passionate election, and I would just like to kind of keep the peace. As far as the ballot boxes, we have 2 designated employees that will be continuously driving around to all the ballot boxes and picking them up. They'll probably hit them 3 times today because of the volume that we expect. They will be closed at 8 o'clock sharp. Those who have not yet voted, you have until 8 o'clock. And if you choose to mail your ballot at this late date, I would highly encourage you to take it to the post office to make sure it's postmarked in time. Because although the number is decreasing, we still have people, we still get ballots that have been signed on the ballot on Election Day, but postmarked the day after. And I don't want to see that happen. So
May I ask a question on that?
Yes.
So I note that our Shelton post office requires a 2 p.m. deadline
Correct.
for postmark. So
That is how I understand it.
okay, so
Yeah.
so you need to have your ballot put into the mailbox by 2
And
p.m.
I have no-
and it's
and
only
I-
a quick 3 blocks away to put
Yeah.
it in our ballot box.
If you want to guarantee to put it, right now, it's 69% of our voters have chosen to put it in the drop boxes. That is a high percentage. And at this late date, I would highly encourage that. Everybody's invited to observe the process tonight when we count the ballots, just shortly after 8 o'clock. They will be posted on the state's website and then actually also on the county website, probably about 8:15. So, anybody have any questions?
I have 2 questions for you, Madam Auditor. First of all, today are you counting any ballots that you pick up today or delivered? It's
No.
not- Okay, those will all be counted tomorrow.
That's correct. We
Okay.
picked up the last ballot box last night at 8:30. We missed
Okay.
the end of the Seahawk game. Just because we wanted to count every ballot that we had gotten through Monday.
Okay.
We are going to be picking them up. They will be bringing them in, processing them, but we will not be counting them because all our expertise will be upstairs issuing ballots because they only have 1 day. We can continue counting ballots, but they only have 1 day to be able to make sure that they get the right ballot and get a ballot. So it's going to be very busy upstairs. That's our priority.
Okay, so you're just counting ballots today that have come in
Come in through last night.
before the election.
Everything will be
So
counted. correct.
tonight,
Mhm.
do you close all those ballot drop boxes the same time? Do you close
Yes,
them
we
at
all
8 o'clock?
synchronize. We all have a cell phone. We
Okay.
have 2 people at each ballot box.
Okay.
Second
So
at 8 o'clock, they
8
will lock
o'clock, you
them.
just grab it, and if somebody comes at 9, they're not going to put it in the drop box.
That's correct.
All right.
8:01, they won't.
They won't be able to-
Yeah, that's right. They will be locked. And then tomorrow morning, they just lock it, and we have made the decision about a year ago not to collect the ballots at that time. It's dark, it's election night, and they lock it, and then tomorrow morning, same 2 employees will go around and pick up all those,
I gotcha.
the ballots,
Great.
ballot boxes.
Thank you very much for all you're doing to promote the
Happy to do it.
election, and hope we have a great turnout.
I do too.
What's our record turnout? What was it 4 years ago?
89.
89?
8 years ago.
It was 89?
89, and then it was 87, and we were expecting 87. That's kind of what we were anticipating this year. So, yeah, a lot of people still out there to vote then.
So we won't know, so if we beat our 89 or,
And we will
get
not
back
know
to
until we
87.
certify about 21 days after, because military, and as long as they're postmarked, they can come in for 21 days.
Right.
Okay.
Can you tell me also, if somebody needed a replacement ballot, how late can they get that from you?
If they're in the office at 8 o'clock, anybody that's in our office at 8 o'clock,
So-
we will lock the door, and then they will be able to get the ballot.
So
Yes.
if it was 8:01 when they finished the ballot, you would
That's
still
correct, if they're
accept
in our
it?
ballot.
Okay.
Mhm, correct.
Okay.
so tonight we'll watch on the news and we'll see people lined up,
Yes.
waiting and polls are remaining open, and so I think our system of mail-in has been very successful. And I recall that we had an advisory vote at one time to go to mail-in.
Yes, we did.
Before the state did. And I
Yep.
think we passed that here in Mason County by 83%.
We did, that's correct.
That was huge.
At the time, we were getting the accessible voting units that were very expensive to be out, until we gave the voters, a choice. And for 4 years prior to that, we had given the districts a choice whether they wanted us to conduct their election by mail or by polls, and they were, in vast majority were going by all mail because the turnout was much greater. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other department heads or elected officials, so we will move on to our public hearing. This is a public hearing to consider some budget supplemental requests and transfers. Frank Pinter.
So we have a number of budget supplementals and transfer requests and a modification or a change to one of them. So the supplementals are a request to increase revenues, $300,000 for the 911 enhanced communication tax, as well as expenses. That is a increase in anticipated tax receipts that were not budgeted for, and requires a budget supplemental. So we have revenue coming in and expenditures going out. The supplemental request that was published was for $210,000 increase in beginning fund balance for the Veterans Fund, to transfer $50,000 to the mental health and $50,000 to community support services. And this is the one that's going to be modified. The adjustment is to increase the Veterans Fund by only $100,000, and to authorize a transfer back to mental health of $50,000, and transfer back $50,000 to community support services. This corrects both a budgeting and a process error in how those funds were both budgeted and how they were paid.
I don't have language anywhere in my book of the change. Could you repeat that one more time? Or if I do, I'm not finding it.
So the second.
Thank you.
She says. Okay,
It's on the second page.
thank you.
The $110,000, $217,000 from ending fund balance, ER&R to health, public health, to the law library, to the treasurers, M&O Solid Waste, North Bay Case Inlet, Russellwood Sewer, Water and Beards Cove, Belfair Sewer. These are supplemental requests that would complete the 2012 audit findings in that ER&R was inequitably charged all of those funds. So these are monies going from ER&R back to all of those funds to fix prior year audit findings. $100,000 from garbage solid waste fees, charges to long haul solid waste disposal.
I think that's $1 million.
I'm sorry, $1 million. From garbage solid waste fees, charges to long haul solid waste disposal, $250,000 to budgeted ending fund balance, and $750,000 for unreserved. That's reallocating the fund balances. Again, no cost to the county. $245,800 from the landfill ending fund balance to miscellaneous contracted professional services for $78,000, interfund professional services for $2,900, and machinery and equipment for $165,000. That is for the purchase and implementation of a Grizzly for the landfill. Again, no impact to the county in current expense or ending fund balance. I'm sorry, there is one more. And $50,000.
I was gonna say, one
She was going to let you go ahead.
I had to turn the page. And $50,000 from ending fund balance, Skokomish flood zone to professional services, Skokomish flood zone. That's a modification. We had in that fund, ending fund balances that are restricted. And so this is requesting that those restricted ending fund balances be put into operational professional services costs to be utilized. Again, no impact on current expense.
Are there any questions for Support Services Director? Yes.
Yeah, Frank, a couple of questions. The first one is, have you already executed these actions, or in terms of returning the money we're talking about the veterans portion of those changes? Have those actions already been executed, and those monies have already been transferred back to mental health and back to community services? It appears so in the Munis report. I'm looking at comparing two Munis reports.
Correct, but it hasn't been corrected in the veterans funds yet. It needs budget approval for that.
Okay, well, it's corrected in the Munis report, but it's not been corrected otherwise.
Correct.
Could you, of course, this has caused, as you can understand, quite a bit of consternation here. Can you tell me how we got down this road?
Sure. It started at budget time last year. There was a misunderstanding in that the budget for one of the $50,000 contributions to purchase the Homes First $100,000 contribution, to assist Homes First with their $100,000 for the purchase of the housing, was to come from the Veterans Fund. And that was in error. So correcting that is now, it was going to come from community support services and the mental health funds. So $50,000 was coming from community support services and $50,000 from mental health. Because of the way the Homes First program was designed and put together, it was determined that public health, mental health funds could not be used to fund their $50,000 component. Ultimately, it was decided by the commission that the community support services would fund the $100,000 request. This budget supplemental appropriates the ability for the adjustment out of veterans to transfer what was transferred into their account subsequently to pay back out to public health and to community support services, those $50,000 contributions that were made into it in error. So there was a budgeting error, and then there was a process error, because the process took the funds out of mental health where it had been budgeted for, but incorrectly. So this fixes that both budget error as well as allows the county to adjust and take those funds and put it back into the Veterans Fund. I hope that was clear. It's a little complicated, but there's two pieces to it. That's why it was. That's why it's so convoluted.
Are there any other questions for Frank?
I have one. Thank you, Madam Chair. Frank, I know that this is a little hard, I think, for us to understand, at least for me and the public, but you mentioned that, and I want to ask you, of all these items, is this true, that there's no impact to current expense funds and the ending fund balances for the county?
There are no impacts to the current expense ending fund balances for the county.
These are just merely transfers?
These are transfers.
Merely transfers. It's not an increase in the budget, decrease in the budget. Okay.
Decrease or increase.
Thank you.
I have a question I hadn't yet
Sure.
asked, because we've talked about this quite a few briefings, but the solid waste transfers, where was that $1 million before? Was that in the operating budget? Or where was that $1 million before we moved?
It was in a restricted, in a ending fund balance in the operating, under the operating budget for the landfill.
Okay, so it was restricted?
No.
Okay. And so we're moving out of the general ending fund balance, this is kind of your cash balance, and moving $250,000
To the budgeted ending fund balance, and then to an unreserved balance of 750,000.
And what does this help us accomplish?
One of the difficulties that the auditor has had, and we'll have a number of these that need to be corrected for the 2017 budget, but how we allocate ending fund balances into restricted, committed, reserved, needs to be followed based on the state auditor's guidelines.
Okay. So we're moving the $750,000 to an unrestricted reserve.
Correct.
Okay.
It's, yeah, unreserved balance.
Or unreserved. Okay, that's a new language to me. So that means it is basically cash that can be used for purposes
Correct.
that
For,
are
under the landfill.
under the landfill.
I mean, this solid waste disposal.
Okay.
And Frank, thank you, Madam Chair. And Frank, the state auditor's guidelines have continued to change, correct?
I don't know if they have in this regard.
In this regard?
Yeah, I think those have been the guidelines that we are now beginning to follow more closely.
Okay, so that it's not a question of them changing the guidelines. We just didn't adhere to the guidelines.
Correct.
Okay. And this corrects it.
Correct. In one case. There's a number of others that are going to need to be done. Those would have to happen in the 2017 budget process.
So we'll have more.
They'll be fixed when we do the budget for next year. So we won't have to correct those.
Do the corrections.
Correct.
Okay, they'll be in the budget
Correct.
and not have to have a special public hearing like today.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, thank you, Frank. If there's no further questions, I'll go ahead and open up for public testimony. Is there anybody who'd like to testify on the item in front of us? Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Commissioners. With regard to the veterans portion of these budget changes, it's a little bit perplexing and a little bit worrisome for our organization, because it was very clear that no money was ever going to come out of during the discussions or during the original proposal, was ever supposed to come out of the veteran fund for services. That was never going to happen, and so how that got incorporated and baked into the mix is quite frankly beyond me. The other portion of it is that the money's coming from the 1/10 of 1% of mental health, as is identified here, fund, is also never going to be used for funding housing. It couldn't be. So it wasn't. There was some discussion about it, certainly, and the discussions came to the conclusions that unless these monies, this $50,000 in question, went to services for veterans, then that could certainly not be used for housing either. And yet this thing progressed forward anyway to a point where not only do we have the $50,000 from the 1/10 of 1%, but we also had another $50,000 up and above that $100,000 total that was on its way out of our fund. How this happens is beyond me, but I would suggest that as much as we operate within oversights and guidelines in the operation of our small fund and what we do day in and day out, that could never happen. I would say that what's happened here reflects something else, and the something else is what concerns me the most. What happened is large sums of money are being pushed around from one fund to another without proper process and without proper hearing. And they wind up multiplying and having more and more problems and a larger tangle of thread to try and unravel. And as you know, I mean, you have a separate department, you have a budget manager, we don't have all that level of expertise. We're just trying to run and do the best job we can, and we don't like surprises in our business, quite frankly. We don't like opening up and seeing that $50,000 is on its way out of our fund. We don't like a lot of things that have taken place relative to this particular issue. It shouldn't have happened. It should never have happened, and it wouldn't have happened had this board at any time had the courtesy to pick up a phone and say, hey, you guys over there at the advisory, this is what we have in our mind. This is what we want to do. This is what our plan is. We may not be consulting with you, but we're just allowing you to know that this is what we got on our plate, but nothing has been done. We kind of like to be included in the loop. I mean, we work for nothing, but we're not a bunch of schmucks. We also like to be responsible. We don't like to be, our fund and our causes to be dragged into this crap. And I'm pissed off.
I need to make a statement here. When you came to us 3 days before we passed our budget and asked for $100,000, we responded. And I personally identified $50,000 from the mental health fund because the issue of a veterans court needing to be established was also preeminent in our work in last year's budget. And the mental health fund is probably the most flexible monies we have to support some of our chemical dependency and mental health needs. Medicaid won't provide supports that are outside of the services of actual therapies. And housing is the biggest barrier to getting even qualified to be in a therapeutic court. You did caution that that may not be an appropriate funding source. You did caution, which meant, in my mind, you had a plan of how that money ought to be spent. I appreciate that you are an advocate for certain amounts of monies here and there, but we are the commission that also gets to have some say in that. I could go on further about how you made sure that the housing that was established would not have a nexus with our therapeutic courts, which was absolutely against everything that we have been trying to do in collective impact. I appreciate very much that you were very much helpful on that. So we pulled out the $50,000. Actually, you had warned. I admit, I tried to kick against the goads and try to have it be a piece that could support another effort of social services in this county. Once this housing was established, I did sit down and ask Homes First, how can we continue to have a nexus with our therapeutic courts? And they were very responsive and said, in the future, we'd like to have this conversation up front. Tom, I appreciate your advocacy, but you don't always get to call the rules.
I want to clarify, in the beginning, Tom, there was discussions, if you remember, because you and I were having them about temporary housing that may have been able to, but it did transform into other things as the process went on, which you were not happy about either as those changes started to occur and became harder and harder. The process, when it did happen, I could never have given you a call because I didn't even realize we were doing that because that was never part of the discussion to do that. So there was no way to give you a call, but when it was brought to our attention, we fixed it. And that sometimes is the best that can happen. But at the time, it was a last-minute effort, if you remember, because you and I were talking about, to try and find a way to get money for those veterans for housing. And because it was so last-minute, I could see how things could get screwed up a bit. I don't like it, but it's the way it is sometimes. The question is, did it continue? Did we allow it to stand? And we did not. And so as soon as it was brought to our attention, of which, you're the one that brought it to my attention, we handled it and did something about it. So please, I'd just like to ask that you give a little credit for that as well, because it is not easy to do it at the last minute to try and make it through. But we never had a discussion about taking out the Veterans Fund through the whole process. So I'm not sure how that happened, but it did happen. And so now we fixed it.
Is there anybody else that would like to testify on the items? Hearing none, I will close public testimony and move to commissioner deliberation. I would entertain a motion if there's no deliberation.
I'll just make a comment. I shouldn't, but I'm going to make a comment that the budget process this year has been very difficult. And last year, I think, was extremely difficult. I think a lot of it stems from the way the budget is written, from the budget instructions that were distributed. And I think it's been very difficult this year. We'll see. We've got time, but it's fleeting to finish our budget for 2017. And we're looking forward to a budget report today. We haven't had a budget report lately to understand exactly where we are. And when it comes down to it, I think we're going to have a very, very difficult time matching our revenue and expenditures this year. And hopefully we're on a better track in the future.
Any further deliberation? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, move to approve supplemental and budget transfer request, 300,000 increase, budget from 911 enhanced communication taxes, revenues, and expenses, 100,000 increase beginning fund balance of veterans, 190 transfer 50,000 to mental health, 164, 50,000 to community support services, 117, $110,217 from ending fund balance ER&R to health, law library, treasurers, M&O solid waste, North Bay Case Inlet, Russellwood Sewer and Water, Beards Cove Belfair Sewer. This supplemental request will complete the 2012 audit finding for inequitable ER&R rates. $1 million from garbage, solid waste fees, charges to long haul solid waste disposal, $250,000, and a budget ending fund balance unreserved $750,000. $245,800 from landfill ending fund balance and miscellaneous contractor professional services, $78,000 interfund professional services, $2,900 and machinery and equipment, $165,000, and also to include $50,000 from ending fund balance, Skokomish flood zone to professional services, Skokomish flood zone.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded, and I won't read through them all, to approve the supplemental appropriation and budget transfers as stated in the motion. Is there any further discussion?
Well, the last item, maybe I could ask Frank, what would be the balance in the Skokomish flood zone after this transfer?
Ooh, I don't know off the top of my head.
That's all of it, isn't it?
Is it pretty close?
Approximately 200,000, I'm told.
Left?
In the beginning fund transfer, because you currently have 254 and you're moving 50.
Yep. So the beginning fund balance is 254 and we're moving 50.
Okay.
So there's 200.
But we're not replenishing that now. We have no more assessment, so,
And that's kind of earmarked for this Skokomish
yeah.
restoration.
Okay, thank you.
There's no further discussion. I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, since we ended that one on such a rough note, can I do a complimentary thing
Please.
for a moment? As we all know, Veterans Day is right around the corner. And, you know, although sometimes we double up our fists a little bit and go at each other, I want to point out that sitting in front of us is three of the most premier veteran support individuals that we have in this county. And we owe them a great deal of thank you. And although we do get, it does take it personal, that's because for some of these individuals, it's their life. I guarantee you, especially Tom, he lives his life and will die by it somehow. And so I can't take this opportunity, miss this opportunity to thank you for your service to this great country and all the service you do for all those who served with you and for us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for the stand down, and just a reminder that on Thursday the 10th at 7 p.m. at St. Edward's Catholic Church will be a concert that honors our veterans and our veterans services. So if you have an opportunity, please take part in that.
Except I'll be at my birthday party.
Okay.
Check the North Mason video.
I think we have a barbecue at barbecue lunch out in Hoodsport too.
Yeah, that should be, yeah.
What day is that, do you recall?
I'm not sure, I was in, when we first started doing it, but it should be on Saturday, I think.
I think you're right. I think it's Saturday.
Also at the Hub in Belfair will be a Veterans Day thing. And,
Usually Port Allen has one.
yeah, no, not on Veterans Day.
Did I?
No, Memorial Day.
Okay, a lot going on.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to item number 11, our board reports and calendars. It's an opportunity for us to share where we've been, how we've represented the county, meetings that we might have and will be attending that would provide a quorum. Who would like to start?
Boy, I missed my spot here. I'll begin.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
Tuesday, the first after our commission meeting, we did meet together with the tribal members of the Squaxin Island Tribal Council and had a signing ceremony where we signed over 29 acres of tidelands back to the Squaxin tribe, which was by accident put on the county's records as under ownership back in the 1930s, and it was very nice, very grand ceremony, or nice ceremony. Just to be with them at the Collier House and to talk about what I appreciated about that day was there was also some quick discussion about places and ways we can be working together on other issues. And I look forward to that. Attended the workshop from the Federal Emergency Management Agency regarding what are the next steps forward in the adoption of and potentials to appeal the maps that are flood maps. It's the first time in a long time the flood maps are being considered to be updated. The drafts are out there. We're trying to get the word out. FEMA's helping us get the word out. You need to take a look at our website, and there'll be more websites where you can actually put in your address and find out whether your property, whether it has been changed as the classification of it, whether you're in a flood zone or not, and this has significant effect on your ability to get flood insurance or not, and that's why FEMA does this, because they do provide flood insurance. We as a county will need to adopt the maps at some point if we want to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, which provides assistance if there is damages due to flooding. So please keep your ears and eyes open for that, and we urge the press to help us also get the word out. There was a lot of discussion about how can we make sure people are aware. There is the opportunity to appeal, but you're going to have to prove that you are above the flood zone.
Madam Chair, if I might ask you a question, was the meeting well attended?
It was not a public meeting, or it wasn't, the intention wasn't the public, but it was well attended by emergency managers throughout the community. Trying to remember, I had to go in late because we did have the signing ceremony.
Yeah.
Unlike the last one, this one was completely attended, well attended by Mason County, which was a pleasure because the time before, a lot of our departments didn't show. They were all there this time. It was wonderful, but as were the city and other.
So there will be a public meeting, and the discussion was, can we do more than one? FEMA's saying that they don't really have the monies and ability to have more than one, but we tried to stress that it's a large county, and if we were to pick a location for a meeting, there'd be somebody to say it's too far away from me. But there will be a public meeting where you can find out, look on a map itself, find out what the appeal process is all about, talk to somebody that does provide the flood insurance and what it would cost, all those things. So we need to get the word out on that as well.
Is that meeting date been set?
It has not. The anticipation it would be in early February.
Okay. And then if a citizen went to the Mason County website, would they be able to see, identify their property and find out if they're in a flood zone?
I don't know if it's on the Mason County website, but if you'll hang on a minute, I can tell you what website to go to. It is on arcgis.com.
Just better go slow for me.
ARCGIS, ARCGIS.com. And then there'll be a pull-down menu to select the county.
ARCGIS.com.
Correct.
Okay.
They wanted to wait and put it on the county website once they had a layer that would say what were the old bound flood plains versus the new one, and FEMA hadn't asked yet that information from our GIS department. So as soon as they got all that pulled together, then we're going to put it on our county website.
But it'll be bigger. The federal overlay is going to be bigger than it was before, I assume.
More went in, but some went out.
There's a 400% increase. There are 2,242 parcels with structures that are now in the floodplain.
2,000,
242.
2242 that are in the floodplain. How many before, do you know?
They didn't know that.
They did not know, but what they said was that there were 469 parcels that did have FEMA flood insurance, and they had, and I couldn't tell you the time frame, I don't know if they gave it to us, 242 flood claims. So it's not clear. They're better at it now than they were before, so we don't have a lot of comparison data.
Okay, all right, we're just getting started. Thank you for your report.
You bet. Then I met with the Pioneer Kiwanis. Then we had an almost all-day budget workshop on the 2nd. I had the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting and a meeting of the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Agenda Planning meeting. I did have the chance to tour Coyote Village. PANZA, who is a nonprofit agency of Coyote Village, who operates it, is very much interested in applying for funding for a veterans housing, tiny lot housing development for homeless veterans here in Mason County. And we'll be would like to team up with an effort that they've been requested to come do with the veterans group in Orting, Washington. And so we would need to, as a county, identify any land that we might be able to donate to this effort and have a letter of intent available to the PANZA organization around the first of the year. I've asked folks to take a look around what our surplus land availability is. Obviously, it would be nice if it had access to utilities, but I think that at the very least, if there's access to water, we could potentially do the same thing with a large on-site septic system. So I think this is very doable. This is so doable. And with 30 tiny homes, our last point in time homeless count identified 33 homeless veterans. Obviously, that number changes a lot, and it's maybe not the complete picture, but with the same sized village of 30 homes, we could potentially provide housing for all homeless vets that would be eligible here in this county. Let's see, then had a weekend, and then our commission briefings yesterday, and then we had our budget workshop in the afternoon. And then we will have another budget workshop following today's meeting, and then I have a Mason Transit audit exit conference, and the MACECOM meeting, and then I will have a pre-agenda meeting for our Mason Transit Authority. I have a meeting with our Public Works Department and our county prosecutor regarding our property up on the famous 40 acres up on Highway 101 and 102, and what are some of the authorities we might have to help organizations, as well as maybe put it up for sale of that property. Using that property, I have an interview with a young student who wants to talk about civic engagement from a elected official's perspective for a paper. Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization, we will be reviewing a budget that'll go out for public review, and just to let you folks know, there is in that budget $150,000 allocated to Mason County for case management and social work type work assistance. At my request, the Public Defender's Office in Thurston County has a new model where they want to do some pre-trial social work case management to help divert some of the defendants from jail by getting them on a good road before they come before the judge. The language that was put into the policy request level budget allocation for Mason County lifted the language from Mason County or from Thurston County. I'm comfortable that we can can more customize the design of this program to meet the county's needs, but it would provide some case management services for potentially our folks that are served also by public defense, but also maybe in our therapeutic courts. And I look forward to a discussion with the commissioners about how that can be used. Thursday's a holiday. Come back for, we don't have meetings on Monday or Tuesday of the regular commission, but I do have a Hood Canal Coordinating Council near-term action adoption meeting of our a special subcommittee of the Hood Canal Coordinating Council, and Mason Transit Authority Board meeting, and then another Hood Canal Coordinating Council Integrated Watershed Planning Steering Committee meeting, and then I travel to Bothell to serve for the Statewide Transportation Improvement Board, and then back here on Monday for commission briefings on the 21st.
Madam Chair, I'll go next. I'm very happy that you had a chance to tour the Quixote Village like I did last week, and it's very impressive. A lot of stereotypes that you might have are immediately disappear when you have a chance to look at what they've done there. And they had, I hope they had some of the board members there perhaps to talk to you too.
They had 2 of them.
Oh, great. So this is a wonderful opportunity, and hopefully we can make it work, because there's so much interest in this concept, from the New York Times to the legislature to other states that are visiting and seeing how it works. So to partner with the Veterans Home in Ording for a facility there, this is a great opportunity. We just got to find a piece of property that would work. So I'm all in, and our friends at the veterans organizations are working hard to try to identify a piece of property as well. And it might not be a county piece. I mean, if there's nothing that the county has, we could hopefully find some appropriation perhaps, or some way to tie up property while the planning is done and the
We'd take a donation
necessary.
too, 3 acres, folks.
Yeah, we're out there. I did have a chance to meet with Tracy Moore, Commissioner in Shelton here, last week, and with a fellow Ed who's a a lot of experience all his life with rail. Talked about some of the projects that they have going on, and the meeting last night I wasn't able to attend, but I did review it last night on Diedrich's Mason Web TV, and thank you very much for covering that. The city commissioners basically are going to talk about this for another 2 weeks. They will. There isn't a lot of sympathy, or I wouldn't say sympathy. There isn't a lot of agreement that the city should take over the roundhouse. After the consulting report came out, it's a huge amount of money, mostly cleanup dollars. I think it was like $26 million. There's access issues there as well. So the roundhouse, I think, is the development of that by the city is a little more as a remote possibility right now. But the idea that the rail within the city could be acquired by the city as a donation from the company, and what would happen with the track out to the reload is still an option. So there were several rail advocates that spoke, and they conveyed the message from me that I'd be more than willing to look at a reprogramming of some of the funds that we acquired for revitalization after the last budget session of the legislature. There was $500,000 allocated. The EDC director, Lynn Longan, came to us, asked for some options on how to reprogram that money, and I think we have a meeting set up.
She was to come back with us with proposals that actually written out at your request.
Okay, and then when we have that meeting, I did have a short conversation with her on the phone, and Commissioner Moore has talked to her as well. So it would be my hope that we could have the city commissioners here when we meet with that,
Okay.
and when Lynn comes back with a proposal, because I think some of that money could be used to actually meet with the owners of the different segments of this and talk about the possibilities for tourism
and development. And the last thing I think the community would like to see is that rail go away, because it is a huge asset. You just don't duplicate that. So hopefully that'll continue in discussions. And I had a chance also to talk to Olympic College Shelton. I was not able to. We had a meeting. Myself and Dr. Mitchell, the president, had a meeting scheduled yesterday. I wasn't able to do that, but they have their 20th year celebration at the college at 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Thursday, November 10th. And I hope I can make it at the end. I have to be down in Portland, but there's some videos that'll be shown. I think Congressman Kilmer and Congressman here in Shelton, Heck, will also be there. I'll be at a Public Power Council meeting early next week with PUD 3 and PUD 1, and we'll have a budget hearing, or not a budget hearing, but a budget session today. I think we're scheduled at 11 o'clock. And let's see, I think that's it, except next week on Monday, I don't believe we have any briefings scheduled. We don't have nothing scheduled for that. The legislature will have some committee hearings, and I'll be there. And then we do not have a meeting on November 15th, a week from today, as well. So our next meeting will be on the 22nd, an evening meeting. Am I correct on that?
Okay.
All right, in short form, Squaxin Island, wonderful. It was an incredible event. They truly were appreciative. And that's always the best place to have a meeting. They feed us better than anybody ever imagined. It's just wonderful, incredible. Wish we could have all our meetings there. I also attended the FEMA, the floodplains meeting, met with the policy team for Mason Transit Authority. We had our budget workshops, met with the folks creating the Suboxone Clinic and services. Hood Canal Coordinating Council Awards. I went in your stead and did mine as well. Went very well. One thing I wanted to point out that was kind of interesting is this is the first one I can remember without a bunch of big-time elected officials. And I actually take that as a compliment. That's not a bad thing, because it's been a great desire of ours to return it back to its main purpose of actual conservation, environmental protection, ecosystem, restructure, anything we can do to better the community and less political. And it was amazing. There wasn't one big one. The room was filled with individuals all doing the work and making it happen. And I just thought that was awesome. It was a great event. I did attend Peter Gunn, the North Mason gentleman, and his wife. He said he was celebrating 25 years of happy marriage at his 50th wedding anniversary. And briefings, budget on the tiny houses. I had an opportunity to meet with a few realtors in regards to that. And I understand, I do want to look forward to doing what we're talking about for rental, but I hope we don't lose sight of the ability to also have this structured in a way to where it can be condominiumized, and we could have a lower cost of living ability for individuals to have home ownership with a lower cost of living and be able to create wealth at a lower level to eventually lift themselves up. I think it's a good opportunity. We have our budget meeting after this. I will be meeting with the Weeblos and Mason Transit Authority site selection. And since I started this job, I've missed two commission meetings, I believe, and one of them I attended by telephone. But after this one, I am taking a few days off. So I am going to not be around, not be involved for almost a week, because I can't give myself a full week. I just can't do it. But so for a while, I will not be attending any meetings for a few days. That brings us back to the next week.
Okay. We all wish you the best, and you have a very relaxing, safe time off. Is there anything else to come before the board? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for being here.